Story 1. Multiple sounds are happening within earshot. For example, the television is on in my living room, I hear another television on a different channel, someone is playing music in the kitchen, and so on. Separately, they wouldn't bother me, but all together they drive me crazy. Story 2. Snoring gives me intense anxiety and rage, and I also have misophonia. I cannot deal with TV noises. Story 3. If you have ever been in combat, you will know the sound of a mortar baseplate firing in the distance. You also know that a few seconds later, your entire world is about to explode. The problem is, the sound of a shipping container being set down creates a hollow boom that sounds exactly like it. I live near an industrial estate and hear it several times a day. It is very minor, but each time it feels like my brain stops the flow of thoughts and forces me to process the sound manually. Story 4. If an advertisement plays on the radio in the car that has siren sounds or a car honking, my anxiety shoots through the roof. Story 5. Apple Watch text notifications from people I am engaging in conversation with drive me up a very tall tree. Story 6. My neighbor's wind chimes. Lovely people. I hope they enjoy them. I dislike those wind chimes. Story 7. It's gone now, but hearing the Skype ringtone in movies or television shows gives me great anxiety. This is probably due to those difficult days when anyone could contact you there, and any silly teenager like me was foolish enough to answer. Story 8. Someone is talking to me while there is loud television and music playing at the same time. I have to turn it off or walk away. Story 9. The sound of someone rummaging in a bag near me. My mentally ill biological mother was chronically late and would drive with one hand or with her knees while doing things. I would sit in the passenger seat unable to do anything about being late to school, which got me in trouble but not her. She would rummage in her bag while driving, often to get makeup, and radiate stress the entire time. Story 10. Cell phone noises, especially notifications, can be disruptive. I have mine on silent and think everyone else should too, unless they absolutely need to leave it on for work or an emergency. Story 11. Loud thumping car stereos. The bass is often so loud it penetrates the whole car, and you cannot block it. Sometimes I feel that citizens should be able to file a complaint against the offending driver for dangerous volume levels on a public roadway. It should be a serious offense punishable by an expensive citation with a mandatory court appearance and removal of the stereo system. I am not kidding. Story 12. The sound of brakes squealing to a stop makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It is worse if I hear a collision. Story 13. Man, it has to be the sound of my alarm in the morning. Like in movies or TV, when I hear that default iPhone alarm, my heart rate jumps and I panic for a second thinking I overslept or something. I know, just change your alarm, but it has just become a weird trigger, like a Pavlovian dread response. It sounds wild, but legitimately makes me sweat bullets every time. Story 14. Cars with straight pipes or some form of engine modification for increased volume make me want to show the owner how easy it is to damage an engine. Story 15. One of my children, in particular, was laughing from another room. They went through some very distressing mental health issues in high school. When they laugh from another room, it is muffled enough that my brain first interprets it as crying, and my anxiety increases. Story 16. Due to past trauma, I experience a lot of anxiety and start to panic when I hear keys jingling by themselves, when the door opens with the sound of keys jangling, or when someone's bangle bracelets jingle. Story 17. Heavy-footed stomping while walking. Learn how to walk on the balls of your feet for goodness sake. This habit also comes from growing up and living in apartments for most of my life. Story 18. One of those bells you ring to get service, like at a hotel. My father had one in the last few months of his life in my home. Story 19. Babies crying, instant anger and annoyance. The good news is that I am aware I do not want to be any human's father. The better news is that I physically cannot assist in the creation of a baby. Story 20. The anti-sound is any pause in conversation during a podcast, and I think my phone is about to ring. Even silence gives me anxiety. Story 21. Motorcycle revving. My ex-husband rode one, and for several years the sound of it meant he was home, so my peace would be lost, and conflict and anger would follow. For a couple of years after our divorce, I would get very anxious with a pounding pulse and cold sweats hearing it. I am better now, but it still puts me on edge. Story 22. Currently, the sound of my garage door opening means my roommate is home. I mentally check whether there is anything to clean up in the kitchen, and then I go hide in my room. It is the same routine I followed when living in my father's house. Story 23. Metal groaning under stress or pressure. Story 24. Chalk drawing on any surface. Dry fingers rubbing together. Any dusty surface being rubbed, such as fingers across a matte painted wall. Story 25. I don't eat McDonald's, but I do use Uber Eats, and we get that request a lot. The beep sound from that machine is so annoying I literally can't stand it. Story 26. Sound coming from other people's phones and loud television commercials. I usually avoid watching videos on my phone with sound and only like the ones with captions. The varying noise levels on phones especially irritate me. Story 27. When people call my name or say any word that starts with the same letter as my name, especially when I was in school, it was probably the anxiety or fear of being called in front of the entire class. Every time the teacher starts a sentence with a word that has my starting letter, my heart used to pound as if they said my name. Story 28. Annoyance at any time due to dogs barking. Annoyance when I am winding down for the evening would be any noise above 30 decibels. Story 29. My phone is ringing. To be fair, it's because I work the night shift and people would not be calling me at 2 a.m. So if someone I know actually calls me in the middle of the night, my mind immediately jumps to the idea that something is horribly wrong. Story 30. Forks hitting people's teeth. I am cringing just writing this because it forces me to think about it. Oh my God. I hate it so much. Story 31. I had a cat who would have seizures when he heard metallic clinking noises, such as shovels hitting rocks, bottle caps popping, and spray paint rattling cans. The cat has been dead for 5 years and lived to 19, but any kind of metallic rattle immediately makes me want to find him and see if he is okay. Story 32. Every day I have to log in to my work platform several times, and I get a brief alert when I am logged out. It gives me anxiety thinking one day it might not log me in, which would be a big hassle and could potentially cost me money. I do not stop being anxious until it shows that I am logged in. It only lasts about 10 seconds at most, but it happens about 4 times a day. Story 33. Sandy feet rubbing together or any dry sandy textured rubbing together makes me want to vomit and gives me immediate goosebumps. Story 34. Cannot stand the noise of someone brushing their teeth. For some reason, that noise is in almost every movie and television show ever made. Story 35. People making animal noises. I love cats, but hearing people meow annoys me to a point I cannot bear. Story 36. My doorbell. I did not invite you, I am not expecting you, and to be honest, I do not want you at my house. Please go away. Story 37. Whistling sends me into absolute rage instantly. Cannot handle it and have no idea why. Story 38. Dog vomiting. I run in the middle of the night, always while sleeping, to get my dog outside before they throw up on the carpet. The heat and smell overwhelm me. Story 39. Loud cars and people listening to music on their phone speakers. Many talented engineers work tirelessly to make engines quiet and headphones provide perfect sound just for you. But some people disregard that progress and choose to live in the past. Story 40. I have a dachshund, also known as a weena dog. She makes many different sounds. One whine is very high-pitched and extremely annoying. I don't know what kind of bird it is, but there are many where I live, and its chirp is the same pitch as that specific whine. It drives me insane. Story 41. Lawn mowers, leaf blowers, chainsaws, thumping bass, wind chimes, whispering, any kind of music at the beach or while hiking. Story 42. When I hear the ringtone I use as an alarm during the day on someone else's phone, it jolts me as if I am running late. Story 43. My phone buzzing with notifications. I know I can turn them off, but leaving them on gets my attention for whatever work task I am being notified about. The annoyance is necessary, but I hate it. Story 44. The sound of silence. Look, when in a quiet room with noise-canceling headphones and no music, it produces a strange, building unease. Story 45. I worked at the International Wolf Center in Minnesota, and the howl of wolves always increases my anxiety. Story 46. When multiple electronic devices are producing sounds, such as a television on while another device is playing a video and a different device is playing video game sounds, it is really stressful for me. Story 47. My neighbor starts up his muscle car every single day to make sure it still runs, I guess. It's a 1987 Thunderbird with a 460 engine, and he lets every ounce of power roar for at least 30 minutes. Then he's done for the day. Fun times. Story 48. Nurse here. The code blue alarm sounded. Not only that, but someone received a text alert that sounded the same. Everyone panicked when she kept getting messages. Story 49. Rain. An old landlord refused to fix the roof, even though it leaked every time it rained. He finally repaired it when his insurance covered the cost. Story 50. The phone ringing or text notifications. Not just because I'm a millennial, I'm an elder millennial. I used to live for the phone ringing. I worked in medical billing and now work in management, so at work when my phone rings, it's usually someone upset with me about something. It became a real problem in 2021 when everyone in my office contracted COVID-19. I had to cancel weeks of patient appointments and call about 100 patients to inform them about the potential exposure and deal with many angry people despite proper personal protective equipment, distancing, and sanitizing. Since then, my anxiety spikes anytime I receive a text. My friends switch to Messenger or WhatsApp for me, but when I get a text, it usually means bad work news, someone calling out, or junk and spam messages. Story 51. I will be 30 in less than a month, and the chatter of popular middle school girls still makes my anxiety skyrocket. Story 52. Full government name. Anytime I hear my middle name, it means something has gone horribly wrong in my life. Story 53. I am a high school teacher. The bottle flipping craze from a few years ago has had a lasting effect on me. Whenever I hear the sound of a flipping water bottle, my brain freezes. Fortunately, it now happens about once a month instead of 100 times a day. The students I teach are usually respectful and will stop flipping the bottles when I ask. Story 54. Someone clearing their throat, dishes being washed loudly, doors being slammed. My anxiety absolutely plateaus when these things happen. Story 55. Loud cars and motorcycles are driving down my street. I have nothing against the people who choose to drive them. The sound is just too much for my brain to handle. Story 56. Car alarm that goes off for longer than 4 minutes, specifically the one that cycles through every annoying sound known to me. Story 57. My sister-in-law's loud and obnoxious noises are the only thing I can think of. It is the last thing I really want to hear. Story 58. Screaming little children. Unnerving. They could be happy or about to die. Never know. Maybe screaming for fun. Story 59. Cicadas. For 2 of the years that I lived in Arizona, I was close to a lot that had power transformers or something similar, and the cicadas just sounded like electricity to me. I learned recently that the ones in the South are much softer and not as unpleasant sounding as I remember the Arizona ones, but they were still triggering. Story 60. Knocking on doors. Don't ask me why it still affects me, but there was a period in my life when I dreaded the sound of a knock on the door. Story 61. In college, my roommate was obsessed with Law and Order. She watched it constantly and would fall asleep to it. I would wake up in the middle of the night to that sound. That's it for me. I hear it in my nightmares. Story 62. When my stomach gurgles, I get really embarrassed and cannot control it. This causes it to make even more sounds. Story 63. This one particular meow my cat makes is a constant, almost rhythmic thrumming sound, ending eventually with a long, shrill yelp. He is not bored. He does not want pets, treats, or cuddles. He wants nothing to do with anyone but the hallway he is currently wailing into. Veterinarians shrug and tell me some cats are just very vocal. Meanwhile, all I can do is listen to the cat equivalent of Yoko Ono in a tribal drum circle. Story 64. Phone vibration. Maybe I have work-related post-traumatic stress disorder, but the sound makes me incredibly anxious. Feels so physical somehow. Story 65. The Gmail notification. I use that app for my school account, and I find that I get a strong feeling of anxiety when I hear it. Story 66. If you work in food service, it is the sound of the DoorDash tablet announcing orders. The device alerts you until you respond, and if you know what it sounds like, you will never be able to unhear it in any restaurant you visit. Story 67. Rain or water dripping. There is a hole in the roof of my current living situation. Whenever it rains, part of my house floods. Moving out soon. Story 68. The sound of anyone cutting their fingernails or toenails gives me goosebumps and makes me want to vomit. I ask my husband and kids to cut theirs outside. Story 69. The sound of a certain era and configuration of Chevrolet pickup. It sounds like my husband coming home. I have been divorced for a decade. Story 70. The sound of a roaring crowd on television, like at a football game. The sound of a car race after the second lap. Story 71. People giggle when I walk past them. It could have absolutely nothing to do with me, and I would still get flashbacks from when the popular girls in school did that just to mess with people. Story 72. I don't want to hear any plinking, plunking, ticking, talking, knocking, rattling, wiggling, waggling, squeaking, or squawking from my car. Story 73. Those quick cut videos show an overhead view of someone making scrambled eggs, coffee, ironing a shirt, or similar activities. Every sound is extremely loud and exaggerated, and everything is very precise. There is a small tool for every task they perform. Story 74. Not anymore, but hearing a car pulling into our neighbor's driveway used to cause a lot of anxiety. They were selling drugs, and whenever someone arrived, there was noise, fights, people honking their horns and yelling, and loud music. Story 75. A smoker's cough. I grew up with a father who smoked packs every day, and my brother used to be just as bad. He used to scare me because he sounded like he was dying every time. Story 76. A dog scratching. I had 2 epileptic dogs back to back growing up. The veterinarians kept increasing the doses but could not get either of their seizures under control. It was awful having them go through that. Neither of my current dogs have seizures. However, if I hear one scratching in the middle of the night, it wakes me up from a deep sleep, and I am immediately filled with dread. They are both healthy seniors now, but my mind is still concerned that they might start seizing at any moment. Story 77. 30-year firefighter and paramedic at serious injury accidents where you are flying a patient out. There is a lot to do in a hurry to be ready to load the patient into the helicopter. My high anxiety sound in retirement is the sound of helicopter blades whooshing close to the ground. Story 78. Sound of vomiting. Sound that some motorcycles make when the exhaust is removed on purpose to make more noise. The sound of very large aircraft, and when they pass quieter than normal, it is even worse. Cell phone alarm. Car alarm. Alarms in general. Story 79. Garage door opening, car doors closing, old wooden stairs creaking, feet stomping through the house. This usually meant a parent was either drunk, had a bad day, or both. If you were in the living room, you would get yelled at, questioned repeatedly about why you were there, and sometimes faced with attempts to physically fight you. If you got to your room, even if you just left for the bathroom, they would knock constantly, asking why you were avoiding or hiding from them. Otherwise, they did not know if you were there. Those were the days I stayed the night at my grandmother's. The longest I stayed was 3 months because my mother was going through a difficult time. About 5 years ago, while visiting my brother and not living with my mother, she cut my right eye open after assaulting me. She was drunk, and I was engrossed in a book on my phone, so I forgot to turn on the light in her living room after sunset. She became angry that I put my puppy to bed after turning on the light for her. My brother was finishing work at that time. After being attacked, I picked up my upset puppy from his nap, and I ran out into the heavy rain wearing only a nightgown. Blood was pouring down my face. I was half blind with a small puppy under my arm, a key around my neck for a push-start vehicle, and my partially charged phone. My mother tried to slam the front door on my ankle several times in anger because she did not catch me. She ran after me as I got into my car, holding onto the door, but I sped off toward my brother's workplace to get help. My mother had already called the police, accusing me of assault because I pushed her off me earlier while she was trying to choke me. The ambulance could only clean the wound, use a special bandage to close the cut, and put a patch on it. However, they were out of patches and gave me a pillowcase with a cold pack to reduce swelling. The police officer said it was a he said she said situation, which I disagreed with, explaining that I pushed her to get away and she punched me in the eye with rings on. The officer hesitated to file charges because my mother is a nurse and such a record could ruin her career. I did not press charges to avoid jeopardizing her job. I ended up paying for the ambulance despite her promising to pay them, as she said she had no money. Within 48 hours, I was evicted and moved to a new apartment because I required more accommodations for my disabilities, which my landlords did not sympathize with. I still interact with my mother but do not stay there. My brother moved out after all of this, and I rarely visit without him because my other dog and my brother's cat still live with her, and we cannot take them where we currently live. My father is unreliable, wants free labor, frequently uses drugs, suffers from untreated bipolar disorder, and needs therapy. He wanted to confront my mother over the injury, but since I did not go blind and did not press charges, I did not want to be involved if he took legal action. I am sorry for sharing this story. I am now terrified of certain sounds because of these childhood and adulthood traumas. Story 80. My neighbors have many pets. Barking, bird calls, yelling, and off-key singing occur throughout the day. The windows are open 24 hours a day. Story 81. Car doors or any loud sounds in the distance because my dog is terrified of noises. It does not matter if he is with me or not. I immediately become anxious about him being upset. Story 82. Echoing sounds, sort of. For example, when you bump into a metal handrail and it hits the next one and the next one, creating a boom boom echo. Or, for example, a UFO flying sound effect, vroom scares me a lot. Story 83. My house was not wrapped before they put on the siding. Creaks loudly. Sometimes, it genuinely sounds like someone is walking around upstairs when I am alone. I know exactly what it is, and it is always the same place, but it sets me on edge every time. Story 84. People making loud snuffling sounds or clearing their throat. Loud mouth chewing. My neighbor's dogs constantly barking. Story 85. My mother-in-law lives with us and has a habit. After using a bowl, she puts it in the sink under the faucet and fills it to the brim with water instead of just rinsing it and putting it in the dishwasher. Some of these bowls are really deep, so it wastes a lot of water and takes a long time, making a loud, constant filling noise. Over the past 10 years living with us, that sound has triggered in me what I now realize is misophonia. A strong, negative physical and emotional reaction to certain sounds. I didn't even know the term until this happened after she started living with us. I have asked her repeatedly not to do it, explained the water waste and my sound sensitivity, but she still does it. Now when she does this, I have to get up and shut off the water immediately when I hear it start, because it is genuinely painful to endure. Story 86. Keys jingling. Stepmom was very verbally and somewhat physically abusive. I always knew she was coming because of the sound of her keys. They jingled differently than my dad's keys. Story 87. Repeating noises like alarms, the sound that only dolphins can understand that children make, and the sound of dishes scraping or clinking. I hate these sounds with a fiery passion. Also, not exactly a sound, but deep bass from speakers causes me physical pain due to inner ear issues. Story 88. My neighbor's voice. We live across from a lovely older couple, but the gentleman has Alzheimer's disease, and his condition is rapidly worsening. Sometimes he experiences severe episodes during which he becomes loud and violent. His wife cannot really handle him. He is a large man, even in his old age, and she lets him loose in the building's hallway. Our building is large, and the hallways are winding and confusing, so he just walks around, rambling to himself. We feel very sad and sorry for him, but he has already punched people before. When we hear him speaking to himself outside, We do not know if he is on one of his regular walks or having a difficult episode. If you step outside, you could get attacked. Right now, I can hear him banging on the doors to other apartments, repeatedly saying his children's names. He never had children with his second or current wife, and his children do not take care of him or visit him. The wife is completely alone in caring for him, and I wish we could help her, but it is far beyond our abilities, and we do not know what we could do. Story 89. That very specific cry an infant makes, which activates every primal mothering instinct I have. I swear it feels like borderline post-traumatic stress disorder. Remembering those cries from the back seat while I gripped the steering wheel tightly and tried not to scream in frustration along with the baby. Story 90. Lately, ASMR bothers me greatly. I cannot stand ASMR. It sends my ears and brain straight to discomfort and gives me more anxiety than calmness. I understand that many people enjoy it, but it has become so common that it has even appeared in advertisements. Imagine just listening to something, paying attention, feeling relaxed, and suddenly panic mode switches on unexpectedly. Story 91. Anything loud and sudden, such as a door slamming or a book accidentally dropping on the floor, physically hurts me and causes anxiety for hours afterward. Story 92. Oh my God. The crinkling of chip bags drives me nuts. Every time I hear it, it sets my teeth on edge. I hate cellophane bags and actually cut them down as the chips are eaten to limit the crinkling sound when someone puts their hand in. I can hear it from rooms away. Story 93. You are as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. Sorry, modern country music fans. Also, I notice mouth sounds when someone talks on a podcast. Their lips parting makes the whole thing unlistenable. Story 94. Blow dryers. My two older sisters used to get up competitively around 6 in the morning before school to be the first to shower and blow dry their very thick hair. I am the youngest and only boy, so I was up at 6 and got cold showers every morning for about 6 years. I do not like blow dryers. Story 95. Literally anyone knocking on my door. Any friends I invite over text that they are here to avoid making my dog bark or waking a possibly sleeping baby. Therefore, someone knocking is unexpected, unannounced, and likely to cause me anxiety. It is usually solicitors, but once it was a police officer looking for a previous tenant, which almost caused me to have a panic attack. Story 96. The sound of an aluminum can opening when I cannot see it. I used to date a man and we lived together. He had developed a drinking problem and said he was working on it. He was not, though. Often, when he thought I was asleep or too far away in another room, he tried to discreetly open cans of beer underneath a towel to muffle the sound. I always heard it. Now, whenever I hear the sound, my brain automatically goes back to those troubled days almost 25 years ago. Story 97. Helicopters. I had some bad experiences related to them, so I immediately become uncomfortable when I hear them, especially when they are close by. Story 98. An alarm clock and the song from the Modelo commercial. Ennio Morricone, Ecstasy of Gold. It makes me uncomfortable, as if I have some sort of trauma history with it, but I have no idea what. Story 99. The door opening. My own name. Clock ticks. Anything at a pep rally, like who invented those? Story 100. Leaf blowers, especially when they are making a continuous pulsing noise, just blow the leaves nonstop. It makes me feel sick and upset. Story 101. Car honking and tire screeching. After being in an accident once, I can never return to how I once was on the streets. Story 102. Car beeping. As a motorcyclist, it usually means someone behind or in front of me is about to make a dangerous move out of frustration at whatever caused their beep. For example, the person in front slows down too quickly, the driver beeps, then quickly changes lanes to avoid hitting them, often moving into my lane in front of me, beside me, or behind me at speed. Story 103. Car commercials that blast 10 decibels higher than the show you are watching the minute the show takes a commercial break. Story 104. Footsteps from a floor above or below me, even if they are quiet, make me freeze up and feel like I am waiting for something bad to happen. I live in a second-story apartment with thin walls. It is even worse when I am visiting family and hear them walking around in the mornings. Story 105. The clacking sound high heels make on the floor. A girl in high school used to bully me, and she always wore heels, so I knew when she was approaching. Story 106. Snapping. My mother would snap her fingers at me and my sisters whenever we did something wrong or if she was upset. Now, whenever someone snaps, I get a spike of anxiety, thinking someone is in trouble. Story 107. Anything that sounds like nails on a chalkboard sends chills up my spine. It is no joke. Story 108. Knocking. I have had some very scary situations that involved people knocking. It has been years, and I still get anxiety when someone knocks on my door. Story 109. Flip-flops approaching my bedroom. The sound of my bedroom doorknob turning, and people calling my name. Story 110. When you are almost asleep and you hear a mosquito buzzing in your ear, you know if you do not kill it, it will bite you somewhere, probably your face. Story 111. Lawn mowers and weed whackers. When I hear them, I start having flashbacks of my dad yelling at me to come help him with the hard work for hours on end. Story 112. Phone ringing. Not a regular personal phone, but office phones. Any of them. Sounds like a whining child screaming at me. Story 113. Throat clearing sounds occur primarily in men but also in many women. It is excessive and causes anxiety and annoyance. It can even provoke a strong desire to intervene. It should be avoided. Story 114. Children whining or crying. Except it is not just a bit of anxiety or annoyance. It is full-blown homicidal rage. Story 115. The sound of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. The low vibration of the motor and the moving air cause a background noise that stabs me in the brain. When we still had tube-type televisions, the static hum beneath other sounds, when my hearing-impaired grandfather cranked it up, caused the same pain. Story 116. Rain on a roof if I am on the top floor. I know most people love the sound, but for some reason it puts me slightly on edge. I think because for most of my life I was on bottom floors and did not hear the sound as clearly, so now it makes me a bit anxious. I love the sound of rain outside. I just do not like the loud patter sound directly above me. Story 117. If there are people walking behind me and talking, not only do I get anxiety, but it also seems to affect my balance. Story 118. The sound of Velcro ripping apart legitimately bothers the front of my inner throat in a way that feels like someone is poking inside with their finger, but not sharply. I am not sure how to describe it. Story 119. For some reason, when it is humid, my kitchen cupboard randomly makes a sound like a huge crack. It makes me jump every time. Story 120. The dryer performs the wrinkle release cycle after it is done. Starts tumbling for a while, then stops and starts again. I love the white noise a running dryer produces, but sustained. The stop and start interruptions are very irritating. Story 121. I got my elderly mother a desk help bell when she moved in, so she could ring when she needed us. I expected a polite ding, but what we got was repeated loud dinging at 5-second intervals. I believe the whole family now has a stress disorder. She loves that bell. Story 122. For me, it is the exact opposite. If the normal background noises in the house suddenly go quiet, it is usually a sign that the power has gone out. Story 123. Hey, I need to talk with you later. Me internally. Okay, but can we talk now? Can I have context? Am I in trouble? Did I mess up? What happened? What is it about? Oh God, what did I do? What do they want to talk about? Is it because of that one thing? Did they find out about that thing? I wish they would just tell me what is wrong. My manager has learned this about me, and now anytime she wants to talk with me about something, she clarifies I am not in trouble, it is a positive thing, or it is just some news. Story 124. The sound of someone's cane falling onto the floor. I don't know why. I work in healthcare, and it happens regularly that someone leans their cane against a chair and it falls over. Immediate rage fills me, and in my head, I'm screaming, while on the outside I maintain the calm demeanor of a normal human. Story 125. When people scoff near me, because they often do, I feel anxious or angry. Story 126. A woman in high heels walking down a hallway with purpose. My mother would always take off her high heels before coming to the kitchen after work. But if she came to the kitchen wearing them, I knew I was in trouble. Story 127. People on their cell phones in public, especially in a restaurant or store, are the most inconsiderate, and it really annoys me. Story 128. When the phone rings, I work on an oil rig and have a 24-hour shift schedule. When the phone rings, it is usually because something is broken on the rig or, less often, someone is hurt. They always break things at 2 o'clock in the morning. I get a jump scare when the phone rings. Story 129. Having a television or radio on louder than normal speaking volume gives me anxiety. Also, having the telephone ring multiple times a day. Story 130. A drink can opening causes a lot of anxiety. Alcohol was a problem in the relationship. Every time I heard that sound, I knew he was getting drunk. I still flash back to that time in my life whenever I hear it. Story 131. I cannot stand the sound of breathing. It does not have to be heavy breathing. If I hear even the slightest sound, I get really upset. I do not act on it, though, because I know people cannot control how their breathing sounds, but it makes me very angry. Story 132. The sound of gently falling water. I have been woken by that sound being a cat urinating on my belongings, so it triggers my post-traumatic stress disorder. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.